In his 74-page manifesto, the shooter wrote this. I want to put it on the screen. Are you a supporter of Donald Trump as a symbol of renewed white identity and common purpose? Sure. What does the president think of that?
Yeah, in fact, I'm a little disappointed you didn't put up the next sentence, which the next sentence, because I looked at it last night, was, what about for his policies and as a leader? And he said, dear God, no. I don't think it's fair to cast this person as a supporter of Donald Trump any more than it is to look at his sort of his eco-terrorist passages in that manifesto and align him with Nancy Pelosi or Ms. Ocasio-Cortez. This was a disturbed individual, an evil person, and to sit to try and tie him to an American politician of either party probably ignores some of the deeper difficulties that this sort of activity exposes.
I want to make it clear. I take your point, and I want to make it clear. The only person responsible for this slaughter is the shooter, not President Trump. But some critics have said that he has contributed over the years to an anti-Muslim climate.
Look, there's folks who just don't like the president, and everything that goes wrong, they're going to look for a way to tie that to the president. So they see the word invaders in the manifesto, they see that passage, and they say, oh my goodness, there must be some connection between this. That's just absurd to say that there's some type of connection between being against illegal immigration, which is what the veto was about, for legal immigration, and the ruthless live streaming of murder of 15 people. The two things have nothing to do with each other. Let's take what happened in New Zealand yesterday for what it is, a terrible, evil, tragic act, and figure out why those things are becoming more prevalent in the world. Is it Donald Trump? Absolutely not. Is there something else happening in our culture where people think, you know what, I think today I'm going to go on TV and live stream me murdering other people? That's what we should be talking about, not the politics of the United States.
If I may, all I'm saying is the president speaks out about a lot of things that he's not responsible for, and he doesn't feel that there's any link. Terrorism. Why not make a speech and make it clear that there is no place in America for this kind of hatred?
Well, I think you saw that yesterday in the tweet. I mean, the president, not sure what more you want the president to do. You may say you want to give him a national speech to address the nation. That's fine. Maybe we do that, maybe we don't. But I think you get down to the basic issue is that the president is doing everything that we can to prevent this type of thing from happening here. The president is doing everything that we can to make it clear, look, this has to stop. The work that we do, including, as I mentioned at the outset, with our Kiwi friends, to prevent this happening is the very central part of defending this nation, which is how the president spends a great deal of his time. So, look, it's a tragedy, and I get that. And we're in a hyper-partisan sort of time in the country, and I get that. But that doesn't mean we need to marry these two events.
Listen to the lengths to which Trump's chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, will go to try to mitigate Trump's influence on the role of the New Zealand shooting. Yes, the shooter wrote in his manifesto that he's a supporter of Trump as a symbol of renewed white identity and purpose, but dear God, no, does he support his policies and leadership. Does anyone think that these violent far-right extremists who Trump is emboldening care what his policy on budget deficits is? That while this guy is planning a mass shooting at a mosque, that he's also following very closely how Infrastructure Week is coming along? Give me a break. If anything, all it does is shine a light on Trump's ineffectiveness as a leader. That even the most deranged people on the face of the earth realize that he's completely devoid of any real stances on policy or the ability to lead effectively. And look, to be fair, I'm not claiming that the shooter is a Trump fan in the generic sense of the word, but I am claiming that Trump's rhetoric emboldens white nationalists. I mean, he continued spouting off the same words that were in the shooter's manifesto in the same press conference about the shooting.
People hate the word invasion, but that's what it is. It's an invasion of drugs and criminals and people.
He's retweeted white nationalist personalities as late as today. He equated counter-protesters with literal neo-Nazis. Whether you like it or not, that behavior emboldens these people to continue speaking out, to come out of the shadows, to hold rallies and transmit their messages as loud as possible. And I understand what Mulvaney is saying about there being people who hate the president, who look to blame him for everything, but to suggest that Trump had nothing to do with this attack in which the shooter was a white supremacist and said he supports him as a symbol of renewed white identity, when the shooter described Muslims as invaders while Trump called migrants on the southern border invaders, to suggest that there's no link when there is clearly, blatantly a link, is some scary, Orwellian stuff by this administration. Like Chris Wallace said, no one other than the shooter is directly responsible for this attack, obviously. But indirectly, when you have the leader of the free world, the most powerful man on the planet, running cover for white nationalists through his words, through his lack of condemnations, that clearly has an effect on certain people. People who see his soft stance against white nationalists as tacit approval of it. But here's the thing, like Mulvaney said, this was a sick man. But there are sick people out there who now feel emboldened, so knowing that they exist, our politicians have a responsibility to properly condemn hate, or else this will continue. And it is continuing, and that's the reality we live in. So no, it is not enough to say, hey, Donald Trump didn't pull the trigger, Donald Trump didn't mail those bombs, Donald Trump didn't attack those journalists on stage, because they listen to his words. They see who he promotes, they hear who he condemns and who he doesn't. And that's what matters most. So when Mick Mulvaney asks,
let's take what happened in New Zealand yesterday for what it is, a terrible, evil, tragic act, and figure out why those things are becoming more prevalent in the world. Is it Donald Trump?
Take a long, hard look at the common denominator in all of these recent attacks, and you'll get the same answer every single time.